Now I'd like to start with a master copy, one in digital and one in oil paint. I've chosen the Norwegian artist Otto Sinding. As you can see here, as in my United States example, I started with a quick sketch of what the outline of the United States was, and then I went in piece by piece, working one color to the next color to the next color, as if I was building out the states. It's the best way I know building shape to shape. As you can see, I left the color palette in the corners. You can see me grabbing color. I am not color picking from the reference. You could do that, but you're missing a major step of understanding color. And as you lay them down and make the mistake and have to redo it, you're just improving your color each time. As I lay in the states, piece by piece, once you get every state, then you can build the counties, then you can build the cities and get smaller and smaller. So that's what I do. I first put in the big shapes and how do those fit together. Once I get those, then I can build smaller and smaller. One thing I want you to notice in this demo is that I'm using a round brush for, I think, 70% of it. In all my demos that I will do digitally, except this one, I will use only a round brush. At the end here, I use I don't know what the brush is, it's just a little bit softer edged at the end to get a little more control. But the reason I'm using round brushes when I do digital demos, even though I have more knowledge in brushes and in Photoshop, I don't want you to think that what I'm doing is a trick in Photoshop. It is more about understanding environment, understanding light, understanding color, and putting that together than any tricks that I might know in Photoshop. And the same with my brushwork as I do demos in oil, as I do my oil paintings. This class is not about like some secret technique of how I use my brush, because in the end, I think observation, understanding light, color, atmospheric perspective, value, understanding all those things are the building blocks of what we create. Then when we use a fancy brush stroke, whether it be digital or whether it be traditional, it's just icing on the cake. So there is so much to be learned from doing master copies. Find artists that you love, that you have things that you like about them, whether it's their shape design, their color, their note-taking, whatever it is, their edge control, their values, and do studies of them. The more studies you do, the better. I don't want to be another artist, but I do want to learn from them. If we were playing piano, we'd play Tchaikovsky, we'd play Beethoven, we would learn how other piano players play, and then we would incorporate that into maybe how we write our songs. We might not even write classical, we might write rock and roll or who knows what, but we'll at least take those influences. So I highly recommend master copies, but not in the end to be them, but to learn from them. And since I was able to build my large shapes in somewhat the correct color, in somewhat the correct shape, and in the right location, then everything becomes easier. So it's really important to get those big major shapes, those puzzle pieces together at the beginning, because then it makes your life, everything after that, easier. I notice here now I have switched to the other brush that's just a little bit softer, because though I think bringing it to this completion is certainly fine. This is everything you can see right here is with a round brush, but it's just going to refine it just that much more. But a major thing I'm always talking about in laying down a painting is carving. And carving is very important for me, for getting a more painterly style. As you can see, when I was using a brown brush, I'm using a fairly large. When I do my oil painting, which next I'll do a oil painting demonstration of master copy, is I use a brush that's very large, because then you can put your shape in and use the shape next to it as the eraser to cut back into it, and it creates all sorts of lyrical brushwork. The other thing is, what am I trying to learn here? Why did I choose this artist? One, I think he's an excellent artist, and he paints in places in Norway that I've always wanted to travel to paint. So I'm inspired by the scenes, but I'm trying to understand how he's handling that foreground versus the distance, how he's showing atmospheric perspective with these mountains, how he is designing with snow versus rock, how he's dealing with reflections in the water, how he's looking for beautiful temperature variations in the sky. So those are things that I'm taking note of, I'm trying to learn, because when I do a master copy, you certainly don't want to turn your brain off and just copy to copy. Pick someone that you want to learn from, someone you're like, wow, that's really interesting. I like how this person does fill in the blank. And then that will kind of give you the guidebook of what you're learning. As I paint and go on, and you can see it's just a refinement after refinement. This whole painting, all the color relationships pretty much and the big shapes, that was all completed in the first 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, it's just cleaning up and cleaning up and cleaning up to the point where you feel like it's refined enough for you, you've learned enough. Or if it's your own original, it's your choice how refined you want to bring something. What is your artistic taste to refinement? To me, it's always, I like to keep that a little bit of brushwork within whatever I'm doing, because that to me is my artistic taste. I mentioned this before, but as I compare the colors, because I'm not color picking from the image, of course, my colors aren't going to be the exact as his, but I'm still learning, and I can still judge and say, oh, wow, if I was to go further, this is the refinement I would make, and this is the refinement. This, to me, I'm pleased with how far we've taken this for here, and I think a good understanding of how a level I would like a master copy for the homework assignment, what I think you should try to do, and put in it at the minimum about an hour, hour and a half on this, and see how far you can go. After this, now I'm going to take this same painting and show you what I would do with oil, because some of you in this first lesson, maybe you want to tackle this in digital. Some of you want to maybe get right into oil paint or acrylic or whatever medium you want to start with. It's sometimes hard to motivate to do a master copy because we just want to do our originals, but just keep remembering that this is the only way you can have a conversation with this artist who lived over 100 years ago. But by doing a master copy, it's like I had a conversation with him. How are you mixing? What color are you using? How do you make your shapes? It's really a fascinating way to talk through time. As I mentioned, I'd like to do a master copy in two mediums. First was digital, now is in oil paint. As you can see, it's attacked very similarly. That I start with the big shapes, and I'm going to work smaller and smaller. But as I make the big shapes, please notice that they all connect. That I don't paint one side, then go to another side. That every piece touches, so I can compare it with the piece that came before. That I can use that piece before as somewhat of an eraser to carve back in. I'm really trying to learn the way he's laying down his color. In just a moment, when I get the canvas totally covered, if you have a lot of time to spend on these, you can spend, the larger the better, the more information. This was fairly small. This was a 7 by 12 canvas. I always try to make them fairly proportionate to the original. It will help you when you're doing your final. But as I cover this canvas, I'm going to bring this to a little more of a completion. But at this point, a lot of lessons have already been learned, especially in color relationships, in how he has desaturated his color but still made it these beautiful grays. So it feels very full of color, but it's not too high in chroma, so it's garish. At this point, this was about, in the painting, this was probably 20, 25 minutes when I hit this point. And so I want to take a little gap here for you to just take note. This is 20 minutes in, 25 minutes, something in there. And now I'm going to build more refined and more refined and more refined. I have all the large shapes, and I'll just go smaller and smaller, carve in, make each shape interesting. I think the color looks good, but it's not as good as the original. I'll have a photo at the end that's a little closer, but the video always makes them just a little harsher or a little more contrasty than the original. As we follow this through, and you can see I'm going back and forth, and at this moment I know I'm noticing, okay, I think my whites of the snow need to be just a little brighter, but I'm still not taking them all the way to white. They might appear white here, but when you see the close-ups at the end, they are a value or two lower than white. And then I'm constantly thinking, how are those relationships between the sky, the rocks of the mountains, the snow of the mountains, the water in the foreground? One thing to notice, like the sky, the clouds can't go bright white. The way he's painted it, if they go bright white, then the snow is not going to look very vibrant because it's going to get too much attention. Same with the sky. The sky's a value down. And so just making those decisions, the dark shape that goes across the separation between the water and then the rocks on the foreground has that dark shape that cuts across. That dark shape is really a great transition. Because of that dark shape, he was able to paint the foreground rocks just a little bit lighter. because that still anchored it against the distance. I'm just sharing the things that I thought about while doing these demos, because I didn't just paint them to paint them. If I'm going to take the time to do a demo, I'm certainly going to try to learn from the artist. I look forward to the opportunity you're going to have conversations through the centuries with these great artists.